Hello again, and welcome to Watchtower Worldwide. I am your hot-headed host, Lloyd, LMW, LM Walker. Um, yeah, I have been around. I'm sorry, I have been gone for a while. I mean, I've kind of been doing this off and on for a few years, but I have recently been gone due to some personal health reasons, and unfortunately, that cannot be helped. Sorry, I had to pause the recording. And so, these things can't be helped. They have to be dealt with when they arise. And so that's what I'm trying to do and trying to deal with. And on top of that, I've been pursuing. This is the same thing every time I get on, and I'm like, well, I haven't been here because of this, that, and the third. That hasn't changed. Actually, I've only increased my workload. As I mentioned a video or two ago, because this new go round is only a few videos out. I think now is definitely the time for everyone to pursue their goals, whatever they may be, while understanding that there's a clock ticking towards the success of that goal in the world that we live in now. So you can become a musician, but realize you'll become a musician under like an increasingly failing economy, a a increasingly suffocating world vis-a-vis the global tensions that are arising. There are definitely places around the world now that Americans are told to not go and visit. Whole countries that are their populace is like in Spain, they're like rallying against tourism. Like immigration is one thing, but tourism is a like a bountiful commercial interest. It's a bountiful commercial interest. They're countries like Jamaica, for example. Not Jamaica's in that list, but for example, countries like Jamaica thrive on their tourism economy, and without it, they would falter to nothing. They would be in complete and utter destitution. So for countries to be so isolationist or xenophobic that they not only are against immigration, but tourism is definitely revealing as far as, I don't know, the devolution of global culture. That being said, I don't have a list prepared for you. The last time I spoke, last time I had an episode, it's probably over a month ago, and a lot has happened in the last month. It seems like every 24 hours, incredible news has happened. Just to like briefly, I guess, recap, there's been a tit for tat between Iran and Israel while Iran is simultaneously invading Lebanon. Obviously, the occupation of Gaza is ongoing, but that seems to have kind of crested, and it's not de-escalating as it were. It's that there's nothing left. Maybe I should go and find pictures. Some of the newest pictures of Gaza's devastation is without equal. You really only see stuff like that post World War II pictures of Europe and perhaps of Japan after the bomb dropped. Oh, geez. Okay. Well, that was sadly too easy. The devastation is wholesale. There's nothing left, So it was very clear to everyone from the beginning when they were eliminating aid workers, when they were bombing UN. What's the word I'm looking for? Like like the deployment headquarters for UN humanitarian teams when they basically tried to wipe out UNRWA in Gaza, which didn't work. So then they tried to smear them, which kind of worked. And even though it was proven as a smear, the American government, still withholding its financing of UNRWA. And mind you, this is something that they're doing in Lebanon as well, right? In Lebanon, there's a peacekeeping force to help enforce a demarcation line between Israel and Lebanon for obvious reasons. IDF just go in there. They ran a tank through the building. Actually, I could pull that up. This is today. They just ran a tank through the UN fencing or the UN building itself. They have already injured not humanitarian workers, but UN workers that are part of that demilitarized zone between Israel and Lebanon. Yeah, and that's just there. Russia has been going through a series of uh, of attacks deep behind their lines. They seem to be logistical in nature, targeting oil refineries. Because one thing to tap the wells that pull the oil, but to tap the refineries that the industry that refines the oil into useful material, that seems to be their goal, which actually is a smarter goal. Um, because yeah, you can always dig up the oil, but if you can't change the oil into anything useful, what good is it, right? And then not only that, but you're wasting money getting it, and now you have to store it until you can refine it. It's good. They've had some setbacks with major weaponry, high value aircraft, things like that. But simultaneously, they've also put their mobile nukes on combat alert, which is like the first time that's ever happened. I think since the Cold War, if not ever. So because of the nuclear, because there's no longer a nuclear treaty, not nuclear armaments treaty between America and Russia, not only can both countries develop nukes in any way they see fit, they can deploy them in any way they see fit. And so Russia's been deploying mobile nuclear weapons, mobile nuclear platforms to their western border towards Ukraine. What are you going to do? I believe they're deploying them through Belarus. Um, let's just jump on to the conflict zones here. I mean, let's just go back to this for a second. This is insane because like they just came through, did this, and then decided, you know what, we're going to start a new war elsewhere. And then they turned to Lebanon and kept it pushing. This is insane. One of the largest, no, the largest intercontinental ballistic missile attack took place between Iran and Israel, just to jump back to that point. But that's how the escalation is developed. Oh, I didn't jump on when Israel conducted their pager attack. They were able to, and reports are kind of spotty because it's mainstream Western media that's like, well, Israel, and by extension Mossad, they were able to conduct this operation over the course of many, many years where they either created or bought a manufacturer of pagers, and through this company were able to implement explosives into the pagers themselves that they were then selling or giving to Hezbollah. Okay, so it's a very sophisticated operation, but then simultaneously there are others who are part of the school of thought that this was a hack, that they were able to cause a thermal runaway event, just overheating the battery through a hack, which I'm kind of skeptical about because of the lack of sophistication for a pager. Pager can like send and receive like a ping, you know, numeric information, but it's not. There's nothing like hackable. I don't think there's any like signals, like Wi-Fi signals or anything like that, being put out by a pager. Correct me if I'm wrong. Oh man, what's that? What else? Elon's come out with the Optimus. The Optimus is a robot. It's a robot that's supposed to be put in. Oh wow, the Optimus next gen, right? This is a Gen 2 because like I thought the Gen 1, I guess, okay. So they recently had a display, like uh, an expo to premiere the Optimus robot, and oh my God, is that its recharging unit? Oh, the Robo Van. See, I don't even know about this. Anyway, so they have the Optimus for Tesla. There's the Neo for 1X. These are supposed to be homebots. Okay. Now, the Optimus also is supposed to have industrial application, put in warehouses and stuff like that. But the Neo by 1X is supposed to be a homebot. Let me see if I can play the video for you without without my feed freaking out. But basically, like a child, it like nods and motions, and then you acknowledge the nod or the motion, and it proceeds to carry out an action. And it's scary and fascinating, and I'll let you take a look. Ah, do you want backpack? I'll give you a backpack. No, it's more like, do you want a backpack? Anyway, I'm sorry. But as you can see, it motions, right? It conveys, but it doesn't speak. I think actually was a good choice. Right, until you're trying to understand why your Neobot is like gyrating and unable to convey like error messages, right? I mean, it probably does convey error messages on the display on its face, right? But they also had the Eve, which it's always weird how the premier robots for any company always has a feminine name, and then their following robots that are more sophisticated and are not essentially slaves have male names. I pointed that out to somebody, and then people started thinking about it. It's like, yeah, why is that? Like Sophia with her T2 Terminator face. Anyway, as you can see, this is also from 1X, and this is the Eve. Now, this Eve bot, similar to Optimus, is supposed to be for like industrial use, packaging, replacing Amazon workers, that whole sort of thing. So automation is in full swing, most definitely. Milton and Helene, of course. So these are two devastating storms that started in the Gulf of Mexico, and then both kind of went on similar tracks here. They were both strengthened by warm waters in the Gulf of Mexico. Yes, you can argue that it's because of global warming, but that's not the kind of conversation I'm here to have. Because climatological change is inevitable, but definitely our activity, our behavior on the planet has exacerbated it. I mean, every action has a reaction. So you can't suggest that 100 years of increased CO2 emissions and plastics hasn't had an effect on the planet. Like, you'd be stupid. But to suggest that the climatological changes that we're experiencing are purely because of human involvement, I think is an overstep, especially given the competing schools of scientific thought. That being said, these two hurricanes, they formed here in the Gulf of Mexico and pretty much just smashed Florida to bits. I don't know if Florida man made it. There's this guy, Lieutenant Dan, who apparently survived in his boat but scamming people. I don't know. I don't care. That's a different conversation. But these hurricanes came through, and they, like everything else, left devastation in their wake, right? And the government, the government in the same way, in the same air as East Palestine, as Lahaina, as Flint, right, have done nothing. FEMA came out and said that they would not have money to last until the end of the year. They didn't even really have enough money, resources to deal with one, let alone two hurricanes of this magnitude. Apparently not one, but both hurricanes were once in a century in terms of their size and power, magnitude. The sitting VP and presidential candidate Kamala Harris came out and offered people $725 that apparently most people weren't able to get. Me personally, I've only been able to see stories of people being rejected for that money. I'm saying my whole thought is, if anyone received it, perhaps they just wanted to crawl away into the darkness to go and try and heal as best as they could. But my feeling is, especially given the controversy and the anger surrounding the situation, like, if anyone were to receive that money, they would go on social media and say that they received the money. I have seen one instance of this, and it was a screenshot, I guess, of someone's Facebook post, and it didn't depict the username or any of the useful data that would be used to verify the post. It was just like a screenshot cropped of a post of someone saying they received the money, that FEMA's doing everything they can, the FEMA's dedicated to helping them, and they think all of the hullabaloo is right-wing propaganda, of course. So, God forbid, if we complain that the government that we pay taxes into and that we support with our votes and with just being a constituent, God forbid, if they do something wrong and we call them out on it, it isn't a legitimate complaint. It's as if we can't complain about our government at all, because if we do, then we're seen as some sort of enemy of the state, or at least enemy of the party in power. Christ almighty. What else, man? There's just been so much. The Francophone nations have really been doing well, right? The Sahel states, which is Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. They have been doing all sorts of things, right? So Burkina Faso, which is run by this guy Toure, he's only like 30 years old, 33 years. He's younger than me, and he helped lead a revolution to free his country. And it's like, well, what am I doing with my life, right? But listen, check it out. So these countries, these three countries, have formed the Sahel states, the alliance of the Sahel states. Okay, and what's happening is that this is the Sahel region. A lot of the Francophone nations have been breaking away, right? The Francophone nations are the different countries within the continent of Africa that were colonized by the French, right? And subsequently turned into the hell nations that they all ended up becoming destabilized places because once neocolonialization began, the French left physically but still kept their economic hold. They would influence the country to put people in power that would support their economic policies but not actually take care of their country. So a lot of nations, I don't know how well you can see this, but a lot of nations have been breaking away, okay? Now, in the case of what I'm talking about now is the Sahel states. In particular, we have Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, which is a smaller country here, right? And they formed their own alliance, military, economic, and otherwise. Niger and Mali have kicked out the French military. Burkina Faso has created the first bank in their country. They caught French spies who were trying to assassinate the leader. Let me see what else. They've banned like French television stations that were propagandizing, talking about, oh, well, you know, Toure, that's the name of the country's leader. He's a bad person. He's this, that, and the third. Even though the entire country supports him, the entire country's behind him. You know, to see support like this for what amounts to, because you noticed, all three men here are all in military garb, very similar, very Western oriented. And that's because these are all Western trained commanders. We train, and it's about time you saw something like this, where the oppressed or the controlled took the training and expertise that they were being given by their lay lords, their overmasters, and then turned it against them. Easy as pie. And so they turned it against them. They're not the only nations to do this, but it's an exciting thing to see because around the world you're really seeing the rightful destabilization of the world order. Right, all of these institutions are finally coming down, and rightfully so, because they did nothing to benefit the people that they were ruling over. North Korea has been sending more trash and more poop over South Korean border, but recently they have, what did they do? What did he do? He openly, first of all, they removed, so within the North Korean like constitution or whatever, they had language that suggested that at some point they were interested in actually unifying. Unification was a part of their objective. They removed that. They increased like the aggressive rhetoric about South Korea, and then they started doing things with like the balloons full of trash and all that. But now they've openly turned their artillery pieces on South Korea, right? And I guess this is because they're accusing South Korea of flying drones across their border. But this is after North Korea has been sending trash and poop across the border south. And in a response to that, South Korea started they started doing psychological warfare and blasting like audio messages across the border into the north. So that's their increasing tit for tat. Oh, right. And then there recently was a development in the Taiwanese Strait where I believe, I want to say North Korean ships. Wait, does North Korea have a navy? No. I think it's South Korean ships, but I believe South Korean ships have moved into the Taiwanese Strait in a provocation. But don't quote me on that. It literally just happened today. Okay, so Chinese ships have entered the Taiwanese Strait, which actually makes more sense. We can actually pivot to Taiwan, and an increase in provocation. Speaking of which, that's not the first time that that has happened. And similarly, you're seeing cases of like there was a case of an SU bomber from Russia. SU-35 is the bomber, and it was flying across the Alaskan area, Alaskan Strait. Because remember, via Alaska, we can like see Russia. I know that that statement is ridiculous. And what's her name? What's her name? Sarah Palin. She said it. I can see Russia from my backyard. I mean, she's not wrong, but it's a ridiculous statement. But the reality is that an overflight from Russia to Alaska, which is technically American territory, it's very short. And so there was an incident there recently where a bomber came by. Fighters were sent to intercept and turn the bomber away, and then a Russian fighter flew in between the American aircraft and the Russian bomber. And it's like all these slight provocations are all just build up to, they're all low intensity, that it's part of the escalation ladder building to a higher intensity. Um, let's see, with Taiwan, um, China's been kind of quiet, other than what I just told you about the ships. The situation with Taiwan, Taiwan is looking, or no, Japan, because of the, oh, no, because it's all in that same area. So Japan, China, and Taiwan, North and South Korea. So there was a period during the Vietnam War in which troops were pulled from South Korea into Vietnam because of how badly the war was going. And at that time, the South Korean president talked about wanting nuclear weapons. Well, that same talk, that same rhetoric is actually happening again because of how stretched thin the American military is obviously seen to be. So I found that very interesting. Japan wants to increase its military budget dramatically and increase its anti-missile capability. Essentially, it's preparing for the backlash that comes from China invading Taiwan. Because once China invades Taiwan, that whole region is in trouble for the West, and all Western allies are going to be in trouble, which includes, of course, Japan. Um, let's see, Taiwan. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's the Asiatic region. We did the Middle East, did Russia, Ukraine. I guess we can. Oh, I did Africa. Um, I don't really know about anything going on in South America. Um, there's something happening in Venezuela. I'm feeling I'm forgetting. Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that. I'm sorry. Sorry for all my Spanish viewers and listeners. So let's bring it home, right? In America. In America. Uh, well, there was the debate. uh, I'm not sure if I spoke about the first debate. I think I spoke about the first debate with Biden and Trump. So then there was the second debate with Harris and Trump. I don't know what to tell you. Trump got his ass handed to him. He was unprepared. He was completely unrepentant and emotional. And meanwhile, you know, VP Harris, she was very smug, but she was at the top of her lawyer game. She did it. She played it like a lawyer. She would open the door to things and allow Trump to walk through those doors, whether it be about immigration, about womanizing, about his economic, uh, his report card as president, whether it be about the economy, how he left the economy, which is like he had some of the lowest unemployment of any president. Um, it was higher under when Bush left, when both Bushes left, and there was another Republican president that unemployment was higher when he left as well. And then there are other metrics, right? But again, like it isn't that unemployment wasn't high when he left. It's just that there were other presidents that had it higher than him, both Republican and Democrat. Oh, Bill Clinton. It was higher under Bill Clinton when Bill Clinton left. But that's because there was a bubble happening. Anyway, I digress. We're not going down that road, if I remember that correctly. But the debate was horrible for Trump. So then when Fox News came on and was like, well, hey, man, we invited you to, we invite you to do a debate here. It's no problem. Trump was like, I don't even know if I want to do that. So that was hilarious. But I mean, domestically, it's been neck and neck. The honeymoon period, the honeymoon phase for Kamala is over. And the Democrat Party is pulling out all of their racist tropes, right? Obama recently said that, if you don't vote for Kamala Harris, that's disrespectful to black women, black men. So, if you don't do it, you're not being a true black man. You're a true man. Same crap that like Trump, if you don't vote for me, you're not Jewish. And Biden, if you don't vote for me, you're not black. All these people are terribly racist. Hillary Clinton, and I always carry hot sauce in my bag. VP Harris and her code switching, like hard code switching, right? At every rally, this is just absurd. Their faux pas, the Harris campaign is having a lot of a lot of publicity faux pas in terms of their optics. They had a 60-minute interview that was heavily edited. I wonder if I were to play the clip, if I would get copyrighted. I'd probably get copyrighted. Maybe. I don't know. I don't want to test it. You'd have to go look it up. It's still on their 60-minute channel, but essentially, as you would expect a mainstream media organization to do, they did the interview, and she has a tendency to spew word salad. It's just kind of blah, 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 blah. And so they took a response she gave, and this is only one example. I'm sure there are others. Because I watched the interview, I saw the 20-minute interview, and even with their edits, it was still garbage because she was sidestepping all of her questions. But the unedited version of the interview was just consistent word salad. And what it was is she's speaking legalese. She was being a lawyer instead of a politician, which I don't know, it's not. Neither are too great, right? So if you were to Google Kamala Harris, 60 Minutes Kamala Harris edited, it's all over the place, right? It's all over the place. It's a big deal, and mainstream media is doing everything they can to not talk about it at all, right? Because as you saw, you're only seeing it on like Fox News, New York Post, opposition, and then mainstream media that's supportive of Harris covers it from the other angle. So instead of covering it like, whoa, 60 Minutes is biased and is heavily editing interviews to support Harris, they're covering it from Trump's perspective. Trump is complaining about this and Trump is complaining about that, instead of actually pointing out that his complaints are legitimate. Right? It's the game. It's always the game. Let me see what else. There have been probably up to this point 6 different attempts on Trump's life, 2 of which were carried out and then 4 of which were stopped beforehand. There was just recently, I think today, somebody who was arrested at a rally. Yes. 3rd Trump assassination attempt thwarted when armed man, Vem Miller, arrested outside Coachella rally. So there were the 2 that we know of. There was, I don't know why they say third assassination, because he actually had a gun and was there. There's the 2 that actually had shots fired. There was the one guy who was campaigning. He was allegedly working on behalf of Iran. There's this guy, and then there was someone else I just recently read about. Okay, a few days ago. Okay, I feel like there's like at least 1 or 2 that I just read about a few days ago. What I'm doing right now is I'm looking for them, because it seems like every other day or so, someone is being arrested, either being accused of something, or there's legitimate concern, like reasons behind their arrest, right? There's no... It's endless. At this point, there seems to be a consistent attempt to remove him, right, as we get closer to the election, and as polls are showing that he's pulling ahead of Kamala. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Besides the election, there's a ton of stuff I'm not thinking of. A fare evader was shot in New York. Yep. In the defense of NYPD, he did get rowdy, did generate a situation. He did actually pull out a weapon, but it was like it was a fair evasion that then turned into that situation. And it's like on one hand, you have to ask like, well, what is the purpose behind the sort of over policing of the subway when the reality is that it's economic in nature? They always bring up first the amount of fare evasion that's going on, and then the fact that, oh, well, it seems there's a correlation between fare evaders and like criminals. And then lastly, it's like, okay, well, you're going through all this effort to get the criminals in the subway. That's great. Then why is your whole program based on catch and release? You're getting criminals, you're arresting them, and then you're releasing them in a 24-hour period for them to go and do the same stuff again. Makes no difference, makes no change. What's the point? What's the point in it? So yeah, there's that. I mean, the Federal Reserve dropped interest rates for the first time, I think, since 2020. We'll see if that actually has an attempt. We'll see if it's too little too late. We'll see if it's too little too late. Because they mentioned that they're trying to aim for a soft landing. And again, if inflation continues to run rampant, the lowering of the interest rate doesn't matter because people will not want to borrow the dollar if it's continuing to be devalued. So like one of the things we need to do is to stop pumping out absurd amounts of money. Obviously foreign wars don't help because we're paying the amount of money that we're paying on the deficit alone and not the debt requires us to borrow more money than we're able to actually produce, which increases the debt. So like if I understand this correctly, the deficit is a yearly operational cost. The debt is the overall amount of money that this country owes, right? So every year the deficit goes up. Every year, obviously, the debt goes up with that. So every year the cost to operate the country goes up and has been beyond our ability to pay for it on a yearly basis, right? Which is why we have to borrow. So if we're not generating enough money to pay back what we're borrowing while operational costs are increasing, how do you think this is going to end? One. And two, what makes you think anyone's going to want to borrow the dollar when it isn't worth anything and there's no light in the tunnel that suggests that it's going to be worth anything 20 years from now, right? There was something else I want to fudge. BRICS. Oh, Bretton Woods. That's what I wanted to bring up. And one of the reasons why this is happening is because the arrangement that Saudi Arabia had with America to trade oil specifically in dollars, which forced everyone to have reserve currency of American dollars so that they can buy oil, hasn't been renewed as far as I know, as far as everyone knows. And the Saudi Arabian government is smart. They're not going to come out and outwardly say that Bretton Woods is over and they're not doing this because they know that the price of oil would go through the roof. It would just destabilize everything. They just kind of quietly did it. And anyone who noticed. Those in the know, and those who didn't notice, that's just it. So we're all kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop as far as oil prices, as far as gas prices go. Let me see. This is all just off the top of my head. I'm sure there's a lot of other stuff. Wow, half hour just off the top of the dome. Nice. I mean, so much has happened in my absence. I'm sorry I haven't been able to get to you. Like I said, I've just been taking care of business in my life, which, as a parting message, because I think this is a good time to kind of round it out. We've been around the world with our updates. We've talked about robotics and AI. Not so much AI, although there's crazy AI models coming out now. You should see them now. They do a shuffle. AI is working on dancing. They do a shuffle dance, which I can't remember the name of. AI dance. What do they call that dance? They call it a sort of shuffle. I know you're asking yourself, why is he looking this up if it was supposed to be the end of the video? Anyway, doesn't matter. We've talked about rebellion happening in Africa and the increasing tensions pretty much in Europe, in the Asian Strait and in East Asia, in the Middle East. Like that's most of the world. Weather events domestically, the U.S. election, we've been around the world here. So I hope that I was able to touch down on and highlight some of the more important issues that are going on today. Just on a side note, Russia also recently changed, I know, right? Russia changed its nuclear doctrine. So basically everybody is preparing for the event that will justify their actions that start World War III, right? And so while Russia changes its nuclear doctrine to incorporate essentially the types of attacks that Ukraine is conducting, Ukraine continues to conduct them. So both parties are at fault. Anyway, before I go back down that rabbit hole, I just really appreciate you, if you are watching, having stuck around, having continued to watch for videos I put out. I'm going to try and change the format, put out shorter videos more often. Going to try incorporating AI into my work. And yeah, there's definitely changes coming. They're still coming. We're still doing it. But you know, on a side note is for what I'm doing. I mean, I'm up here trying to publish books, both novels and comic books, graphic novels. I am currently working on some IT proficiencies, which kind of dovetails into some creative creative aspirations I'm pursuing, learning how to do stop motion. I'm working with Blender and Unreal. What else? Those are kind of the main things. Doing a lot of studying. Like I'm in school as well as trying to work full time, dealing with health issues, learning how to learning how to model, render, and animate in Unreal and Blender, and I'm teaching myself how to stop motion animate as well. So I got a full plate, a full plate, and it's very exciting. I'm very excited. I have some equipment that I've been looking at to bring the show into form, right? Because right now you're basically looking, you're looking at a dude in a robe on his room. I want to, you know, get an enclosure, kind of get some decorations, maybe get a better mic, EQ, get a better like there are things I'm working on here. We are working towards something always. I hope you are too. And I hope one of those things, or the majority of those things, is like self-improvement, self-actualization, realizing who you are and what it is that you want from yourself and from this world. We are all important players. Not to say that we are all main characters, but we are the main character in our own lives, right? So take advantage of that. Be aware of that. It's important. You are important. So please be well to yourself and to each other, okay? Take care. I'll see you soon. Trust me.